Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the third in the three-part session for voting in new officers of Yes California organization. Today is January the 30th of 2022. I will be your host, the interim president of the organization, Jason Wright, accompanied by Mr. Marcus Ruiz-Evans, our friend Silent Mike, Mr. Robert Stark, and none other than the Rabbi Stephen Axelman. Today, we are going to start casting our votes and counting them, and 1 week from today, voting will be closed, and we will reconvene and tally up all of the votes, and it'll be final, and if people are voted in, they get their title right then and there. If they're not voted in, no title. So let's begin. On the matter of CEO, for Jason Wright as CEO, myself, obviously I have to abstain from casting a vote on this one. But we have Marcus, Mike, Adam, and Fuji Shiora, who hasn't been with us lately. He's been on some family leave, but he is also still a member. We've had 6 votes come in, so I would like to turn it over for some quick thoughts on what's going on. Does anyone wish to rescind their candidacy? Does anyone wish to maybe make some sort of final statement of what they feel they could or should be looking to accomplish should they be elected into the position that they're running for? Bueller?
Maybe you should pick people in the order if you just want us to. Rich, okay. Your device is not connected.
Well, I'll go first then, just to lead by example. I am still going to run for CEO, and what I hope to accomplish as CEO, should I be elected, is I would like to steer Yes California organization into more international outreach, more partnerships with our fellow independence movements, those that are seeking peaceful legal means to self-determination. I would also like to see a start of fundraising. I have some ideas about grants and whatnot, if we can as an organization. I would like to then use funding to further our message, get it out there even wider. So, how about you, Marcus? Do you want to go next?
Yes, I'd like to run as president. I will not be accepting any other positions. I would like to be president because I think that I'm the best at the job. I'm very well versed in the idea of California independence. I wrote a book on it. I traveled to 40 cities. The movement for Calexit actually started with me in my book in 2012, plus the article by Tom Elias in 2013, How California Would Do on Its Own. I was the guy that started the idea and thought about it. And while I wasn't the first president, that was by choice. I was the research director. And so basically what that meant was I outlined the whole plan as to why we're doing this and how to argue it. So even though I wasn't the main face at the beginning, I was the main brain saying why we do this and why it's a good idea. I've been on national television 4 different times. I've always represented the organization well, and I have been put in many difficult, pressured situations, and never did I buckle. I've also done a few more documentaries, and everybody says that I do a good job representing the organization, and more importantly, the cause for which it is. I will always be dedicated to the cause, and I will always be speaking on behalf of it. But being able to be given the title by you as president so that I can get some recognition and speak on behalf of the organization will give me the gravitas that I need to be able to take this message as far as it can go. I'm a dedicated servant. My track record speaks for itself.
Awesome. You caught me
Sorry.
taking a swig off my coffee there.
Sorry about that.
No. That is not your bad, my brother. Rabbi Axelman, would you care to say a little something?
Yeah, I just want to continue to make us and keep us as quote unquote mainstream and accepted as possible. Like Jason and others, I want to work with the other movements, obviously have very strong ties to the New Hampshire movement, of which my son is currently president. We also run Liberty Block. We also run Americans United for Peaceful Separation. So I want to do whatever I can for the movement to be recognized nationally as a serious movement in conjunction with all the other serious movements.
Awesome. Pardon my lopsided heart. I'm not as good as Marcus is.
Practice.
I know you like to always stay silent, Mike. Would you care to voice an opinion on anything?
He could also type it in if he wants. If Mike wants to type something in, we can post those comments.
That's true. You could always type it out and we'll read it off. And
my silent mic says, we know why we are here.
Okay. And Mr. Stark, Robert, do you have any last anything to add? About
I just want to say that promoting outreach, coalition building, reaching out to other groups with shared interests, and also proposing. I think there's a need to be more aggressive as far as media and more politically aggressive as proposing an alternative framework tailored to California issues. That's my pitch.
Nice, short and sweet, to the point. Love it. Okay, so Marcus, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've had 6 people cast votes, correct?
Yeah,
we had 7.
We've had 6. So you can't vote for yourself as an officer. There were 4 people running for offices. Let me get this right. 4 people running for officers. Okay. You can't vote for yourself, which means you could only really get 3 votes out of that. So each of the officers said, I back the entire slate. Then Adam Kokesh said, I back the slate. Then Fuji Shiora said, I back the slate. Then Silent Mike said, I back the slate. So the 4 officers all voted for each other except themselves, plus 3 additional people equals a total of 6 votes for each of the officers, with no one saying they didn't want to vote for that person or thought that they shouldn't be running.
Okay. So current vote standing on the matter of CEO or Jason Wright for CEO, we have 6 votes yay and 0 votes nay. On the matter of Marcus Ruiz Evans for president, again, 6 votes yay, 0 votes nay. On the matter of Rabbi Stephen Axelman for vice president, 6 votes yay, 0 votes nay. And on the matter of Robert Stark for head of outreach, again, 6 votes yay, 0 votes nay. I would ask at this time that any of our fellow Calexit Congress voting members please make your vote known. Now is the time. Do we have anyone showing up in the YouTube comments? No.
No.
Okay. Well, I mean, we can hang out and discuss Calexit related stuff for a few while we wait for potential others. I would be open to that. I'd be open to pretty much anything. I mean, I know I'm interim president, but I'm not a dictator. So,
Well, two things, if I may. Do you want me to text the Calexit members, say this is the slate of officers, and ask if they support it too? I had offered to do that one time.
yes, please.
Okay. And people have till Sunday, 7 days from now, to get that tally in. So I will be texting and calling people who are Calexit Congress members this week. This is the slate of people you have to choose from. No one else has offered to run. The list is final. You had 3 weeks to volunteer to run for a position. No one did other than these people. So that's it. You can either support this list or not, or you can support individual people and not others. It's up to you. But these are the people running. There is no other option. People had 3 weeks to do this. They chose not to. We already have 6 votes per. I think the list of Calexit Congress members is somewhere like 25 to 35. So we're doing pretty good. We're already around the 3rd or 4th. With your permission as CEO, interim acting, I will reach out to them this week and see how many more votes I could get. However, if we don't get more no votes, then this is almost a foregone conclusion how this is going to go. I mean, in theory, if I reach out to a bunch of people and 15 people text back, hell no, I cannot stand Marcus as president, then I would lose. But if there's not a massive sea of opposition, then kind of a foregone conclusion. Additionally, you have till next Sunday to get your vote in. If you do not respond, that's on you. We've advertised this for 3 weeks to the best of our ability. There's 1 more week of voting. You can either say yay or nay, and then it's over. No one else can run. These are the officers, and it's likely going to be these will be the people who will get into office. I just wanted to point that out. I will work on that. May I have your permission to cover a little bit of why we do this? News that recently came up that explains why Calexit is still a relevant topic.
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, before we get into that, I wanted to dedicate today's episode to my abuela, Ernestina Barrios Ruiz. She taught me that California was stolen by America. My mom, who was very pro-military, very pro-USA, never taught me that, right? So it was like a awkward subject that people didn't want to hear. But my grandma made it clear, like, no, this land was conquered, and the Latin people didn't get to have a vote, and they were treated like dogs. And she was from Texas, and she knew that this happened in California. So not original Californians, but Latino people know. So thank you, Grandma, because my mom wouldn't have told me, and if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have known. And at an early age, I have to say that inspired me to pursue Calexit. I recently did a video, and I showed you, Jason, about a week ago, where I talked to another Latino. I've never met him before. And he had already heard of Calexit and totally backed the thing. And I go, why do you do that? And he goes, because we give so much and we get nothing back. So I've never met this guy before. And that was last week, which still proves, I'll see if I can find the video here in a second, but it still proves there's still a market of 1/3 of Californians who believe in this from the polling and buy it. And still 160,000 members who buy this. Nobody has stopped believing. It still makes sense to a lot of people, especially in the Latin community. And I'm not sure I would have gone into this if I wasn't born into that. So let's get right into it. One of the main reasons that you got to back Calexit is that California can't trust federal institutions. So whether you like this or not, now here's an article out this week. LA Times, California settlement limits ICE from redetaining immigrants freed from COVID. Basically, 2 medical advisors for the Department of Homeland Security this week denounced the slow and inconsistent efforts to control the spread of the virus in detention facilities. They're talking about ICE facilities in California ran exclusively by the federal government and housing Californians. In a whistleblower letter, I don't know why I can't talk today. In a whistleblower letter, 2 physicians urged Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro N. Mayorkas to expand access to COVID-19 vaccines and approved treatment medications as well as masks. In a searing response, federal judge Vincent Chabria in San Francisco called the conduct of officials in charge appalling and said ICE had lost the right to be trusted. So what happened was Joe Biden came in and he says, I'm not like Trump. We're not going to treat Latin people that way. Look, I hired a Latino. Look, he's from California and he's going to run ICE and it's going to be totally different. Well, here's the results. Democrats hiring a Latino from California working for the federal government, same exact response as Donald Trump. Want to be clear. Democrats, Joe Biden, hiring a Latin person from California, same results as under Donald Trump. That's 2 administrations in a row where it's okay for Latin people to be put in concentration like camp conditions. Yes, in the middle of a deadly pandemic where people were dying in close to 1 million and everybody was told that every day, the same administration that pushed that narrative also put Latino people in crowded conditions without masks, where they would cough on each other, catch the disease, and die. We also know that happened in the border. So that is 2 times under Alejandro Mayorkas and Joe Biden, where concentration like camp conditions and people died. And just to make that really clear, remember, Californians hated Trump mostly for putting immigrants in concentration camps and his racism. Well, here's an article by the New York Times 8 months ago. Democrats, once outraged, take a quiet approach to migrant children. The duplicity was so bad, the New York Times even had to go, damn. Wow. That was 8 months ago. Now, this week, we find out that on top of concentration-like camp conditions for Latinos on the border, we have concentration-like camp conditions for Latin people in Homeland Security across America 8 months later after being chastised. Absolutely no difference. Dead Latin kids, concentration-like camp conditions, the exact same stuff Californians were outraged against Trump is still going on with this administration. And yes, it's being documented. And no, that's not hyperbole. So this is America. This guy on the extreme right is going to do this. This guy on the extreme left is going to do this. What does that mean? This is America, right? You can't go, oh, it's Trump. Oh, it's Biden. No, it's the US of A. And all your fellow liberals across America are just fine with Latin kids dying in concentration camps and Latinos being rounded up and dying in concentration camps. Thanks, America. Looking good. All right, let's go on. If that wasn't enough,
if I may point out,
sure,
real quick, let's make sure we all don't forget that Trump got out, Biden got in. One of the first things that Biden was asked about is, are you going to undo what Trump did to the border facilities? Because remember, the border facilities were created under Obama and Biden, and then Trump came in and ramped it all up. He cranked that knob up to 11. Then when Biden comes in as president and not just vice, we ask him, hey, are you going to change this? Are you at least going to undo some of this horrific stuff? And his response was something to the effect of, no, it's fine how it is. Meaning, what Trump did is fine how it is in Joseph Biden's eyes. I want that to be very clear. And now, after a lot of public outrage and push, he finally sent the least popular vice president in modern American history down there to go and try to fix things. And of course, she screwed it up. But, you know, it's a hard thing to fix. I get that. I'm not going to rip into Kamala too hard. But there's a reason why most of California doesn't really like Kamala Harris, and it has nothing to do with her gender or skin tone. It has everything to do with her policy and her ability. And that was very clearly reflected with how she handled not just the border, but, you know, our neighbors south of our border. You know, she went to another country and told them, just don't come, just don't do it.
That's
like
right.
It was some, you know, plea for people to just, oh, please don't go and put yourself through this. You don't need to. And, you know, really, you try fleeing a war-torn country where your women and children are abducted and have atrocious things done to them. You try that, and then try thinking for 1 second that you don't need to get away from that. You try to find somewhere else to go that, you know, is totally accepting. Well, we've got California here. There are some European nations that have been very welcoming towards folks who are fleeing persecution and all sorts of other atrocities. But by and large, for the most part, most of the world is not really too accepting of people who are fleeing for their lives. California is kind of the one safe haven for North America as far as immigration. And telling people to just not come, you're basically asking them to just lay down and die or hand over their wives and daughters. That's insanity. No one in their right mind is going to say, oh, okay, you're the second in charge, so what you say goes. Alrighty. No one says that. That's why she's so unpopular. Because what she should have said is, hey, I'm from California. I'm the vice president, the second highest authority of the executive of the United States of America. And I want you all to know that we care, that we will do what we can. Maybe we can't do everything that we would like, but we will try our hardest for what's right. That would be very in line with Californian thinking. But no, instead, what we got is right here.
That dangerous trek to the United States-Mexico border. Do not come. Do not come.
How so unlike Trump? Did I have you on mute? Can't unmute your guest. They chose to. You muted yourself, Jason.
Oh, shoot.
So yeah, there's
I muted it while the video played. My bad.
That's Kamala doing it. And one second.
Yeah, Kamala only not like Trump there in the fact that she didn't call them, you know, names of, you know, this, that, the other. She's not trying to vilify them as actual, you know, criminal offenders. However, the feeling of it is all very much the same. Don't come up here to our country.
Also, Joe Biden said, don't come to America. So let me put that up.
It looks like Rich is in the back room now.
I'll let him in. Here's Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Don't leave your town. So that's both Kamala and Joe saying the same thing Trump did. And then here's the article from the New York Times where they were talking about, wow, the Democrats are just like the Republicans when it comes to migrants. And that was 8 months ago. And then here's the federal government under the Democrats doing the exact same thing as Donald Trump. So radically, radically different, as we can tell.
And another great modern example, very current example of how the Dems and the Republicans are both the same thing, screwing over all the people, no matter where you are in the world. Nancy Pelosi was asked, why are people who are elected officials who create policy that directly affect stock prices, economic outputs, businesses, corporations, why are those people allowed to do insider trading? Yet if any one of us does it, we've committed a federal crime. And she feels that it's fair, it's a free market, they should be able to do what they do. And hey, I get it. If I was a multi-bazillionaire and my only concern was keeping my multi-bazillion dollars flowing in every year, yeah, I guess that would be my only concern, is just keeping that money flowing in. But that tells you right there where the third highest power in the United States, the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, tells you where she's at with things. And again, massive outcry from the general population of the United States saying, oh my God, this is so unfair. This is so corrupt. You shouldn't do that. You can't, oh my God. How is this even legal? Well, and then it turns out the people who write the laws that would say, no, you can't be an insider trader even if you're a policymaker. Well, the people who write those laws are the policymakers. People
It'd be interesting
such as Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, the new Democrat senator from Georgia is proposing that bill against insider trading, but it's interesting to see if he's serious or not, because he could be genuine, but it will be interesting to see whether Pelosi in leadership will quell that immediately.
What's going on?
Yeah, something tells me there is going to be a boatload or two, maybe even a few whole boatloads of money being thrown around to try to combat any sort of legislation that may prevent insider trading from our legislators. That's my prediction. We'll see how it goes. Let me just remind you, not to toot my own horn, but I've got like a 98% accuracy on my predictions over the years.
Can I cover a couple more of the outlines, and then we can have like a round discussion about all? So, with your permission. So here's another reason why Californians can't trust federal institutions even after Trump. We just talked about how immigration is exactly the same under Biden as under Trump, with California Latinos involved in that travesty and horror story. Here's another one. This came out in the San Francisco Chronicle. If the Supreme Court rolls back the Clean Water Act, California will be ready thanks to Trump. When Trump tried to roll back the federal regulations on inland waterways towards the end of his term, California stepped in with new pollution control standards that would largely fill the gap the Supreme Court seems poised to create by mid-2023. So as we've talked about here, 35 conservative states control the Senate, control the presidency, control the Supreme Court. We've talked about that a lot. Because of that, the Supreme Court has now gone more conservative than it has been in 50 years. Even though Trump's gone, he has now a legal arm to grab and take policies in the direction that he wants. So even though Trump's gone, Trump-like policies will continue in America. Here's one of them: removing pollution controls in California. Thankfully, California acted like a nation and said that we're going to have our own high-level standards equivalent to the federal standards, so that when the federal government fails us, we will still have standards in place. So these are two examples. And I think it's interesting to note that these articles came out this week, one by the LA Times, the other by the San Francisco Chronicle. So the two largest newspapers in all of California talked about how, wow, the federal government's basically not going to protect our environmental regulations just like under Trump, even though Trump's gone for the last 2 years. And wow, immigration is being handled basically just the exact same way as under Trump, even though it's 2 years later. So we're looking at environmental regulations, which are important to Californians, same as under Trump, 2 years later. Immigration regulations, same as under Trump, 2 years later. Two largest newspapers in California pointing this out. I just think that's key, because when people talk about why do you want to Calexit, and that's so bizarre and edge, and I'm like, how's it edgy? These are the two largest newspapers in California pointing out damn well why this is a good idea, and doing it boldly and now. Let's go to another one. That's not all. America is falling apart, as we've talked about routinely, and I wrote about in my book in 2012. I predicted America would actually fall apart around 2025. We're 3 years away, and I'm not happy about it, but all the predictions that I made in 2012 have only become more prescient with time. I talked about America falling apart back then. Everybody laughed and thought that was silly. No one thinks it's silly when I bring up the concept now. How was I able to talk about something a decade before it happened, unless maybe the trajectory was already there if you were willing to look? So the New York Times, another major newspaper. America has split, and it's now in very dangerous territory. The United States continues to stand out among nations experiencing the detrimental effects of polarization, according to a Carnegie Endowment for the International Peace Report. None of the wealthy, consolidated democracies of East Asia, Oceania, or Western Europe, for example, have faced similar levels of polarization for such an extended period. Along the same lines, McCoy Press write that the United States has a unique combination of majoritarian electoral system with a strong minoritarian institutions. The Senate is highly disproportional. What they're pointing out is that America doesn't work because the Constitution says states have rights, not people. States have rights, not people. States have rights, not people. Now we look at the Bill of Rights and go, well, that enshrines rights for us. Sure, but not for how power is decided. The Senate gives 2 people per state. This article by the New York Times directly criticizes that. Also 35's, because you have the Electoral College, you have an outnumbered way in on the presidency. We've seen 2 unpopular presidents be elected within the last 20 years, maybe even 3. And finally, because the Senate confirms the Supreme Court justices, they can confirm the Supreme Court justices by an unpopular president. So the minority states control the Senate. Because of that, they can control who gets elected as Supreme Court justice or nominated. They also have outsized influence in the presidency. So they have outside influence on the presidency who nominates the Supreme Court justices, and they have total control over 2/3 of Congress to block or approve any of those nominations, giving them total control of 2 of the 3 branches of the federal government. Additionally, no laws can be passed without the Senate approving them. Giving them 2/3 amount of the power in the Senate allows them to block all legislation that a majority of Americans want. We've showed you in recent episodes how studies by, I believe it was Princeton University, showed that since the late 1970s, Americans have gotten absolutely nothing that they wanted. It was a study of all laws passed since the late 1970s from Princeton University, came out around 2015. And what it said is, here's what the main Americans want. Here's what the elites want. Main Americans get nothing. Elites get everything they want. And this is in a smooth graph going from the late 1970s to now, or 50 years, by Princeton University in 2015. So, that's basically proof right there. This article by the New York Times is saying the exact same thing we have said. The Constitution bakes in an unfair and undemocratic way of organizing elections and the government. And because of that, a small minority of states who do not share California values will be able to block all of our legislation and shut down all of the things that we want. Like you've just seen with the Supreme Court likely going to strike down our emissions controls, and also the federal government enacting horrible border actions. Finally, it's important to point this out. I love this show. I've interviewed Jeremy Zogby. He's a friend of ours. Although he doesn't endorse the concept, he doesn't endorse the concept. I'm not saying that he does. We just talk about polls. But in the recent episode this week, I would encourage everybody to watch it because the polling is that Americans are the most unhappy they've ever been. And the support for Joe Biden is the lowest it's ever been. And you can literally see the older Zogby is saying, well, you know, things were bad in the 60s. America's going to rebound. Everything's going to be just fine. Don't worry. And then Jeremy, who's younger in his 30s, is saying, okay, I didn't live in the 60s, but we study polls. And the polls are saying that America is as fractured. There's as little support for the federal government as ever. People are turning on each other 2 degrees as ever. People are less likely to marry outside of their political party as ever. And now we have unhappiness in America is the highest it's been in a very long time. And Jeremy came to the exact same conclusion I did. They told everybody that Trump was a fluke. And the moment he's gone, everything's going to be put back together, that America works totally fine. The orange one is crazy. And that's the only reason things aren't working for his 4-year period. It's halfway into the next guy. Things still aren't working. So people were told, you get rid of the fluke, everything pops right back into place. It's 2 years later, that lie has been exposed. The only option, therefore, to believe is that America itself doesn't work. Now, they're not saying that publicly, but what they are saying is lowest faith in the federal government, lowest faith that America's headed in the right direction. 2 years in, these are supposed to be the good times. They're not. America's failing, it's going down, and as we've said for years, the ship is broken and it can't be fixed. Let me show you some of those sources here, just so you can see this was all.
If I may add to that real quick, while you're going, let us not forget that Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, towards the end of Donald Trump's time as president, she held up stimulus checks to the people for the holidays during the pandemic because it might make Trump look good. Now, if most of the country already hated him, why would we need to continue to combat his image and popularity? We wouldn't if what they had, led people to believe that this is a fluke, most of the country doesn't really like him. If that was true, right, then we would not have needed to combat his popularity. However, the people didn't seem to care as much about who the most popular kid in school is as much as we cared about whether or not we will survive, whether or not we will still be alive in the coming year. And part of that was whether or not we are going to even have any money to spend for things like food and other basic necessities, let alone right at the holiday season. I mean, how much more Grinch can you get? No, you all don't get anything to spend during the holidays. Well, you know what? The holiday time was when people would have been spending and generating that economic flow. Nancy Pelosi holding those checks up is one of the myriad things that has directly affected an economic downturn. And it has led directly to the suffering of the people. I'm just saying, here we are a year later. We just passed the holiday season again. Still no checks. Even though Biden's in office now. No checks. And I get it. It's easy to forget about giving out stimulus
also
money
added
to the people
Newsom-
when you're already a multi-bazillionaire.
Newsom was a total failure, giving out a complete lopsided stimulus. Only a fraction of Californians actually got a surplus check. Newsom's been a total failure on that.
Yeah, and yes, that is a great point. Newsom and Pelosi both, and that is an amazing point, Robert. Thank you. They are both the same side of the same coin, doing the same
One
thing.
thing I heard is that he refused to give them to anyone who was disabled.
I did not hear about that, but ultimately it wouldn't really be that surprising. I got one as someone who's lost their job and their place to live and everything. I got one federal and one California. So the federal was $1,400, the California one was like $400. I've gotten like a stack of letters from the state and the IRS saying, "Oh yes, expect a check to be coming within 7 to 10 days." I've got a stack of those letters, but no payment. And then there's all this debacle with the unemployment EDD, Employment Development Department. There was some hiccup around money should have been given out, but it got stopped up at the EDD or something, and a lot of people on unemployment didn't get their unemployment payments, and there's been really no interest in looking into it. I mean, if he was interested, he's had more than ample of time to get it done. So one, look into it, and two, actually figure out what happened. Yesterday or the day before, Newsom's appointee to the EDD resigned. Does it have something to do with it? I don't know. Maybe we should ask. Something tells me someone out there got a whole lot of people's money, and there's not really much of a care from the rich and powerful who are in office, one of whom has refused to give up the emergency powers he took like a couple years ago or whatever. No interest on their part to make this right for the people. And remember, we outnumber them greatly, vastly, so much so that, take the senators. There's 2 for each state. Yeah, well, we got like roughly 40 million people here in California, roughly 12% of America's population, Californians. We outnumber them big time. So if they were actually smart, they would go about things to make things better for the majority of people so that maybe we'll want to re-elect them, but they don't care. The only thing they care about is making their wallets fatter, making their stock profiles fatter, and staying in power.
Sorry. Can you hear me, Jason?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I pressed the wrong button. With your permission, may I do a share screen?
Totally.
Here it is. Americans are the unhappiest they've been in 50 years. Poll finds. And that's NBC News, and that came out June 2020. So, that's 2 years ago, but they're also finding the Zogby report is talking about how people are still unhappy now. So it's January 2022. Americans are massively unhappy. And then 2 years ago, Americans are massively unhappy. Nobody seems to think things are getting better. So, and that's with Donald Trump, the orange one, gone. Why aren't people happy? Why aren't things getting better? And why are policies being continued exactly the same from one administration to the other when we were told they're radically different? May I have permission to show one more video?
Totally.
Okay. Here is the video. So I took this January 23rd. I've never met this person before in my life. And here's what happened.
You said you're down with Calexiters? Are you down with it? You think it's a good idea for California to be a nation? Okay, thank you.
So, I mean, he was a little bit drunk, but he was all about it. I just wanted to point out that that was someone that I randomly bumped into, never met before, and was saying, yeah, of course, Calex, it's a good idea. We give so much to the feds and get nothing back. One of the things we always talked about is the proof of the concept. So we've never felt that the 30% of Californians who supported secession in January 2017 and February 2018 ever left. We just felt that they were dissuaded from believing it was a realistic plan, but they never stopped believing it was a good idea. Whenever we run into random folks who support this for the exact same methodological reasons that we have said, it's proof of concept.
Good evening.
Okay. Because he will be back. Silent Mike says because he will be back. Not sure what that means.
And that's I know what that means. That's he put that up in relation to when you were talking about Trump.
Oh yeah,
that is completely in line with the prediction that we've had this whole time, that just because Biden managed to just barely sneak that win, it does not mean that Trump's not coming back. In fact, Biden's popularity has tanked, while Trump's popularity has stayed pretty much the exact same.
Yeah. They're going to seize power, and I guess we should discuss like how to interact with Californians when that comes.
When what comes?
When the GOP victory happens.
Oh, midterms? Yeah.
Midterms.
Yeah, California's going to lose.
Well, and sorry for interrupting, but let me just say, yes, I believe that the midterms will show us a re-strengthening of Republican control throughout the federal government. It will then lead to the aiding of the reestablishment of the Trump, not just doctrine, but the Trump administration and mindset. It will then, just like last time Trump took office, it will then provide that catalyst for those of us who realize America is broken, it is failed. It's not failing, it has failed. It's done. And we're just sitting here going down with the sinking ship, when what we could do, and more than likely should do, is get on our lifeboat and get to safety. And, for those who think that, Trump will be charged with some federal crime that'll permit him from, or prohibit him from being able to run for the presidency again. Remember that guy, George Bush, and his right hand, what was his name? Dick Cheney? Dick Cheney shot a Supreme Court justice point blank in the head with a shotgun. Oh, it was a hunting accident. They did nothing to him for that. There are like actual war crimes that have been proven. There is war profiteering that has been proven. They're not held accountable for it, even to this day. They've been out of the limelight a while. There is no interest in holding a former or sitting president accountable for criminal action. So if you're going to hold your breath waiting for Donald Trump to be thrown in federal prison, you're probably going to suffocate yourself, because it is most likely never going to happen. It would set a precedent that is dangerous for those who have been in power. It says, it doesn't matter if you held the power, if you hold the power, if you've ever committed a crime, you get charged and, you pay the penalty for your crimes. And people who, manipulate stocks and make millions of dollars off of insider trading and, help to manipulate the law in ways that can benefit them financially, they will never vote to accept any such legislation. The only way that something like that could happen is if a president of the United States makes a presidential decree, a presidential mandate saying all criminals must be held accountable. But again, that would set a dangerous precedent for they themselves, which is why they will not do it. Do not hold your breath waiting for Joe Biden to do the right thing. Don't hold your breath waiting for Donald Trump to do the right thing. Don't hold your breath waiting for Nancy Pelosi to do the right thing. The only right thing they know is right by themselves, not right by the people. Yeah, running for president to avoid jail. Yeah.
But I mean, the point is that Californians were told, again, Trump is a fluke. Trump is not the real America. Obama literally said that. So we're 2 years in. People still back Trump. He's not gone. He's still as popular as he was. That was not supposed to happen. We were told that was never going to happen. The man was going to be defeated. Everybody was going to know that he's over. Joe Biden literally said there would be a calming period. And many liberals said, well, they'll realize they did wrong and come back around. It's 2 years into the next term, and that never happened. There was no, oh, sorry for backing Trump. We realized we did wrong, and we're not with him anymore. They're still with him. And they're taking up his talking points. Ron DeSantis, even if Trump doesn't get in, that guy's a Trumpite. Marjorie Taylor Greene, even though I like some of the stuff she said, basically this is Trumpites. So we're 2 years in. Trump methodology is still here. Trump supporters are still here. Trump was never in prison, and his following still grows. And all of that was not supposed to happen. So all of the predictions they made have completely failed. Midterms come in and Republicans come back in control. That was never supposed to happen. Right? America turned a wave. And after the Republican Party braced white nationalism, they were done forever. Well, now they're back in power. Well, you told Californians that the Republican Party was the white nationalist party. You told them that Trump was a fluke. Now they had a majority of the American voters back them in. That means a majority of America is white supremacist. That's the only logical explanation based upon everything you've told us. So when the Republicans get swept into midterms, expect a lot of Californians coming to an awakening of, oh my God, this country we're tied to is racist. And it wasn't just Trump. It's the country. Like we've said, Donald Trump was talking about Mexicans are rapists on the campaign trail and then still got elected in. And I always like to hear, the guy almost won re-election. So, and if it wasn't for COVID, he would have. And Joe Biden only beat him by 2%. Joe Biden only beat Trump by 2%. So the first election was supposed to be a fluke. The second election was going to be, oh, everybody realized what they did wrong. Biden ekes out a win by 2%. We're 2 years in, and it's still Trump. At what point do we recognize that America and Trump are the same thing? I think midterms might be the day when people have to pull their head out of their figurative ass and realize what we have been saying for years. The awkward, ugly truth is true. And, you know, whenever you get somebody to recognize a horrible reality they never wanted to see, they kind of go into shock. So I expect people to go into shock in midterms, and I expect Californians to be in massive disbelief. Remember when Donald Trump got elected, the entire California government wrote a joint statement saying we woke up looking at America as a foreign country. What are they going to do when they have conclusive proof that America is racist? We woke up, we've been awake, and America is still a racist country. There's no dreamlike stupor. There's no early morning indecision. You know it's a fact. It's midday. What are you going to do? So I expect the exigencies and the neuroticism to be even more grandiose than what we saw in 2016 at the pivot of the midterm elections coming up in just a few months, I believe.
Yeah, and if I may add to that, expound upon that, it doesn't matter under Trump, under Biden, under Obama, under Bush, under Clinton, under Reagan. Pick a president, any president will do. Even Abraham Lincoln, who notably said that he himself was in favor of white supremacy and maintaining the supremacy of the white man. Pick a president, any president will do. Every single president has maintained a certain status quo, be it classist, racist, sexist, you name it. They're not fair-minded people. They're not known for being for the people. They're for themselves and their wallets and maintaining power. And the people of America will always be driven to such extremes as racism motivated type violent acts based on their racist beliefs and thoughts and feelings. And, you know, again, Joe Biden's the current president. What just happened at that synagogue down in Texas not too long ago? Thank goodness people made it out alive, other than the perpetrator, I guess. But that's a stroke of luck. Usually they don't end well. When a hostage situation goes down, especially in a church or a synagogue, which has become kind of a thing here in America. For those of you who don't, pay attention, I'm interfaith, so, no one religion, just all about peace and compassion. And so I pay attention to these things, and I see synagogues, mosques, what they say are black churches in the South, right? Being shot up, burned, people being murdered there. America is a land where not everyone is racist. I'll give them that. But racism is so prevalent here. So prevalent. The only way that we as Californians can really get away from that is not to directly combat it. It's to leave it wholly and altogether, to rid ourselves of it. Sometimes, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for a people to abolish the political bands which have connected them. So said the Founding Fathers. There is literally nothing more American than saying, hey, that's not right, that's not me, I don't stand for it, I'm out of here because you're a corrupt asshole. Pardon my not so French.
Anything else, Robert? What would you like to say about all this? You're well informed, sir. Do you have any take on midterms and the fall down of America and the inability of federal institutions to provide the level of service that Californians expect?
Or Silent Mike if you'd like to type something in. Or you could say something.
Well, if not, Jason, maybe we could wind it down with your permission.
Yeah, I was hoping someone might have a little something to add so I didn't have to end it on the hellfire and brimstone. But,
we're good at hellfire and brimstone here.
yeah, you know, you work with what you're given.
We're pretty good
You're
at it.
given lots of brimstone.
Yeah, lots of brimstone. We're pretty good at it, I would say. Yeah. Uncomfortable conversation, but it needs to happen. I view us as the doctor who has to tell the patient they have cancer. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to do that. But what good would a doctor be if they didn't have the conversation and inform the patient? Oh, this is awkward. It's really bad. The chances you're not going to survive are bad. I just won't tell you because it's uncomfortable and negative and depressing. That's how people get better? No, it's not. The doctor has the hard talk with them, and then they have a very difficult decision about a radical surgery they have to take, and that is the only way you survive. We have suggested the radical surgery to take. Where do you know the prescription? We are trying to get people to listen to the doctor talking about how the patient has cancer. That's where we're at now. And I see a lot of people saying, that's an uncomfortable subject. Let's not discuss it. I had a conversation this week with somebody, and I said, let me interview you. You're talking about how America's falling apart and people don't want to hear it. So come on my show, I'll interview you, and we could talk about it. And they go, no, I don't want to because it could get awkward. So here's somebody having a conversation about how America's falling apart and people aren't paying attention. And I said, let's highlight this. And they go, nah, I really don't want to make it too awkward. Proof of concept. They don't want to do this, which is why the patient's going to damn near have, it's going to go from a pinky-sized tumor to a softball-sized tumor in its brain, and the forehead's going to be bulging out before the patient actually goes, oh my God, I think I have a real problem. If you had the conversation that was difficult and scary when the tumor was the size of a pinky nail, you could survive. By the time it gets to a softball and it's distorting the shape of your cranium, you're probably not going to make it. I don't know how far the tumor is. I've never seen America implode before. I don't think anybody is. But it's somewhere larger than a pinky and on its way to a softball. And nobody seems to be recognizing that it's there, and that anything less than radical surgery will save the patient on the operating table. Our goal is to get that recognition.
I would add one small note that allies of America have been able to see. It's harder to see from within the forest, but remember when Germany said, we may have to figure out how to do things without relying on America for their leadership or even their partnership.
Right.
They realize America is failing. It has failed. It's like, dead and in the death throes. Sure, there's movement, but it's not triggered by life. It's triggered by spasms of death. And that's what we're stuck in right now. And we can either GTFO, or we can hang around and decay along with the other 50. Unless, others decide that they're going to go and seek self-determination, which, I support people's rights to self-determination. So if you're going that route, you got my support, as long as it's legal and peaceful. New Hampshire, Texas, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Alaska, Vermont. Did I say Texas? Even Baja, and the people of Tigray, and the people of Afar, the people of Taiwan, Hong Kong, Micronesia, anyone, Scotland, Catalonia, Catalan, anyone seeking their right to determine their future for themselves has my support. We'll go to the comments real quick. Oh yeah, that's don't click that link.
I did. I don't even know what that is. So
yeah, people pop stuff like that into chat all over live streams, and it's just scam phishing.
Yeah.
Redirect you to some site that'll allow them to open a portal into your device. Yeah. So maybe remove that comment if you can, just so no one's tempted to click it. Yeah,
I gotta say is
I'm
I
good.
won't say who, I won't name names, but I just got a message on Twitter saying that someone's been trying to call you and that your phone's on mute.
Me, Marcus?
Yeah, but I won't.
Oh
I
yeah,
usually
someone
name
was
names.
trying to call me, but I was in the meeting. But hold on for a second, I'll go answer the call. Who is this person? Robert?
Someone, Louis Marinelli messaged me on Twitter and he said that he was trying to call you.
Okay, well, I would prefer
Find
to.
it interesting he was blowing up your phone while you're in a meeting, and he clearly knows that.
Can we not do this? We had a nice episode. We did the elections. Can we just end it here?
Yeah. I'm good. Ending on the note of, here is a recap of the current vote count. On the matter of Jason Wright, myself, for CEO, we have 6 votes to 0 in favor. On the matter of Marcus Ruiz Evans for president, we have 6 votes to 0 in favor. On the matter of Rabbi Stephen Axelman for vice president, we have 6 votes to 0 in favor. And on the matter of Robert Stark as the head of outreach, again, 6 votes to 0 in favor. That is how our current vote stands. Voting will be open all the way until 1 hour before next Sunday's meeting. This is to give myself and Marcus time to check, double check, triple check all of the votes, get them all tallied in, and then double check again that everything lines up, it's all correct and perfect. Next week, next 12 noon next day. go till 10 in the morning next Sunday. And now we've got
Oh, sorry.
count. Yeah.
Good eye.
So by this time next Sunday, we will know for sure who our elected officers are, and we will then go into just immediately into starting to walk this new direction as a team, as an organization, as a movement. So to
Yeah.
all of you watching and listening, wherever you are in the world, nothing but California love for you. Even if you're not a Californian, California love. Stay safe, stay smart, keep using the best muscle that we all got, the brain.
Con amor, abuela. Adios. I'll see you guys later, okay? Love you all.